Thanks for tuning in to my official channel, Reverend MeeLing. I've been known as quite a few different names, depending on which scene you knew me in, as far as lifestyles and stuff. Could have known me as Susan or Susan MeeLing or Reverend Susan MeeLing, Reverend MeeLing as well. Or you could have known me as Lady MeeLing, Lady Dori Belle, or a few other names. Anyway, so I'm going to continue reading from the book I authored, Fail-Safe: The Kennedy Curse Fused with Science Fiction Fantasy, written by me, Susan MeeLing. Doesn't matter what the name is, I'm still me, which, I can make a joke in regards to, especially after my head injury on Palm Sunday in 2000, that would probably be a big aspect as to why I could not go back into basic training for the Army of the United States of America. Because no matter what my name that I've gone by, I can't not be me. I don't know how to be covert at all whatsoever. I also can't tell a lie. I couldn't tell a lie before my head injury. But after my head injury, I definitely could not tell a lie. So that probably has something to do with it. Like, for example, for doing certain type of special ops, you probably have to be able to do that. And I can't. So I can make that joke, I guess, is technically the way that goes, right? Something? I'd say 2/3 of a pun, but not really. And so, I guess the only way I could technically be covert is in scuba diving, but that's only when underneath the water, and that technically is still not true. I can make that joke in regards to covert, yeah, to human beings. If you don't know what my gear looks like when I've gone scuba diving, despite it being, the colors black and white is what I've gone with. So my scuba fins and my snorkel have always been white. And then my gear, well, usually is black, with the exception of the label from whatever company made it. And so, however, in the ocean, they don't go off of what you look like. They go off of who you are. And so, if you're acceptable, you're allowed to be in the ocean, as long as you don't, mess anything up. And if not, well, there are laws of the ocean, and that's how that goes. And there are plenty of individuals who understand that laws of the ocean are not the same as laws on land. And that realistically does also go when it comes to outer space. The laws as far as outer space, and the beings thereof, it's not necessarily the same. It's very similar, but not the exact same. So, you're tolerated in space. You're allowed to go as you are allowed to go. Not just because of technology aspects, because if that were, true as far as, scuba diving, similarly to space travel and space exploration, well then, I wouldn't have been able to land where I did because of the gear, right? Because the gear I had was just a regular nitrox tank with a 3-foot regulator. So by that standpoint, that would mean, like, by the normal aspects, my scuba gear would have had a malfunction. But since it didn't, obviously, you can take that into consideration in regards to space exploration. Because it's not always the gear. So, continuing on with the Torah style reading of my book, Failsafe, The Kennedy Curse, fused with science fiction fantasy. Silence overcame the grainy image before the reverberating voice stated, "I am going to explain the history of your solar system before rewarding humanity with your fate." The first voice explained, "This is not a time to report partial facts or mix the facts with opinions or non-consequential details." Continuing as the initial voice stated, "Among the top 1% within all of the world leaders we hold in our captivity are many of your current artists from different genres and influential public figure statuses." The cemeteries, which had been covered by newer buildings and communities, shook the land, encompassing the remains of many lost souls, freeing the inhabitants throughout all cemeteries of old and new to roam the planet to add to the destructive energy surrounding the earth, flying up and away from the binds of the burial locations to devour each and every living being in sight. A single soul would leave only a few drops of blood when completed with the prey. Other ancestral souls entered to inhabit the body of the host of the spirit overpowered to take control, using the body to rip the limbs from others' bodies, shredding the meat from the random panic-filled crowds for the increasing number of ravenous souls to take out their vengeance. All of the centuries, each soul was forced to idly watch as life continued on around them without any progress. The now unbridled energy flows freely. Some spirits taking over a being entered their minds to drive the masses insane, showing them all of their wrongdoings. When the person could not handle the consequences of their actions any longer, some committed suicide through failed attempts or beheaded themselves by the horror-driven means. The omnipresent voice boomed while calmly saying, "I am sure everyone wishes they could erase every decision they have made," blankly stating, "Today, I am with your world leaders and each member of all families within the top 1% of riches for this world." Another voice exclaimed in a higher pitch than the first, "Remember to tell them the story from the beginning." The initial voice ignored the secondary voice to continue, "Do not bother to criticize the security numbers, for each person is here because humans are not a match for us, as the cherubim humans are just so easily defeated." The second voice piped in, "No one can reach them or us because you as a race have not earned the right to understand this technology. Each galaxy is a blank page, and your efforts need to meet the bin, cherubim." Pausing briefly, just for a tiny little giggle, before declaring, "Even your top 1% of the 1% are not safe from us or this." Waiting a few extra seconds prior to state in an antagonizing tone of voice, "We are at the bottom of the 4th deepest underwater river connected to an underground lake." A giggle echoed, "Within what you humans call the Marianas Trench," scoffing as the second voice taunted the humans. "Good luck getting anywhere close to us anytime soon, let alone locating us." Screaming overcame the clouds. Ye shall all dwell within them. A maniacal laughter rolled with the clouds, filling the skies above to bellow 4 times. Woe to the inhabitants of the earth and of the sea, for they know where the cherubim be. Woe to the inhabitants of the earth and of the sea, because they know where those cherubim be. Woe to the inhabitants of the earth and of the sea, for they know where those cherubim be. The voice stated with a disapproving tone, For the devil has come down unto you, cherubim, but God has the great wrath. Several lightning bolts struck the land simultaneously before the voice echoed, He hath knows, he hath but a short time. Calming slightly before saying, So says the book of Revelations in chapter 12, verse 12. When time passed to 4:44 a.m., throughout the mountains and lands of China, an ear-piercing screech loudly blared throughout the earth. Most animals throughout the water and land took their last breath within seconds before the sound beginning. Many ears started to bleed, pouring uncontrollably downward. Screaming from all living humans cried out for mercy. Only a few minutes, and the sound seemed to last for an eternity to those on earth. All electronic devices with a screen began to flicker, and people started feeling some hope. The nearby kitchen and household appliances seemed to have a hologram flickering in place of the device. A large, shadowy figure appeared within the fuzzy haze, and the sound of banging hushed the screeching. The silhouette remained silent and still until the sense of capturing all of the remaining individuals of humanity's attention. Planets aligned with other astrological energy forms throughout the entirety of the Milky Way galaxy, sending radiating vibrations throughout the universe. African and United Kingdom territories felt earthquakes throughout their lands, with similar effects China had felt. Guam, Cuba, Haiti, and other islands disappeared without a trace instantly. Satellites lost signal with the magnetic changes throughout the globe sent off of the orbit's track. Many orbiting space stations lost power, killing all life on board without a chance to respond or react. Tsunamis and hurricanes came to the acreage of Australia, covering the continent to cleanse everything away with oceanic waters. Land masses of Iceland, Greenland, Norway, Finland, and similar disappeared off the map in a similar manner. North and South America were filled with the swirling waves from both the oceans of the Atlantic area and Pacific, completely obliterating the connecting grounds for the Americas. The oceans rejoined themselves together while drowning all land dwellers in between. Rivers started flooding over the dams, breaking the levees, keeping some citizens safe. California broke away from the northern hemisphere, destroying the majority of the surrounding states, including Oregon, Nevada, and Arizona. Survivors left to deal with the marine wildlife filled with a maddening craze. Attacking animals prevented humans from violent attacks and defending from other surviving people. Those states beginning at New Mexico and all the way through to Louisiana had already been damaged by the ocean waters. Fully separating the Americas, the remnants quickly disappeared along with the final southern states. Parts of Maine down through Florida had washed away with the northern flooding waters. The oceans began to flood through the rivers and combine with the Great Lakes, while both mountain regions for each coastline of North America began to rumble. Ranges started moving in tune with all other shaking mountains around the globe. The spiderweb of destruction and chaos continued through the rest of the world, from the North Pole to the South Pole of the Earth. The skies became a large computer screen projection of social media pictures and comments from online, burning in flames as an energetic voice declared, "Whosoever was not found written in the book of life was cast into the lake of fire." People sleeping were woken by their household items levitating and hovering at the end of the location they slept, waiting for people to wake up. When each individual awoke to the sensation of being watched to see the floating appliances, everyone opened their mouths to scream. Before their mouths could come close to opening halfway, all of the appliances piled on top of the once sleeping person, putting the individual permanently to sleep after crushing them. The appliances kept in their grouped gangs while moving. On their way to find their next set of victims, the appliances gathered more group members, passing by smaller groups or singularly attacking electronic devices. The gangs urged others to join the rioting spree. The only programming which mattered to any technology creation solely became programmed for destruction. Moving freely throughout the spaces, the appliances ran amok. Adding additional comments while email accounts and text messages popped into view within the skies to overhear. So states Revelations in chapter 25, verse 15. Several people were able to make eye contact with a few others and mentally begged with their interactions, "What type of flash mob live-action roleplay is this?" Sharks slammed their heads against the coral reefs and caverns throughout the water. The starfish broke into 5 separate pieces and quickly reformed, multiplying at a rapid pace, creating littered starfish throughout the ocean floor, as the multiplication had been infinite, more than any ability to count. Sea anemones and other spiked aquatic life shot their points out from every single pore, propelling in each direction to pierce someone or something at any random second. The salt from the ocean waters quickly evaporated into clouds, undetected by anyone. Mixing the glooming and impending cloud above, the rolling thunder increased. Lightning struck both water and land, hitting oil towers and spewing fire-filled liquids everywhere. Batteries throughout the world, on both land and in the seas, exploded at will, boiling the acidity over and onto anything within the chemical grasp. Windmills abruptly disassembled from the base stem as the blades spun off in separate directions, cutting through everything within each path for each individual fan blade. Solar panels heated beyond the normal temperatures, cooking birds in the middle of their flight, melting holes into the ozone layer faster than any hairspray company combined from the 1980s at each panel location. The larger field of solar panels, the more intensive the hole into the skies above all of the earth. While the solar panels rapidly grew hotter vertically, those which came into a close proximity would not suffer the normal cooking, causing the internal physical being to externally fry. The heat started projecting horizontally. All nearby humans, plants, and animals suffered cooking from the inside out to a crisp. Working to blend the heat and electricity from the intended sources out into the sky, the human race randomly jumped from the energy surges within. Unable to explain to another person of the exact same pain felt during the heightened electric pulsations, many convulsed for several minutes. Once able to run, they would, only for the surges to continue. Some died instantly, while others continued living, dealing with the electrical impulses sporadically shooting outward throughout their bodies. Wildly, the yelling echoed throughout the entirety of the globe. "I saw the dead, both small and great, stand before God, and their books were opened," the voice continued. "All written in the books according to their works are to be judged on the final day." A screech reverberated throughout the universe. "The sea gave up the dead which were in it, and death and hell delivered up the dead were which in them." Calmly the voice added, "And every man and woman according to their works were evaluated in grave detail instead of great." stating additionally, such has been prophesied in the book of Revelations in chapter 20, verses 12 through 13. More violent earthquakes and contritions throughout the globe cause the Earth's crust to shift and plates to move continents. Europe and Asian Russian regions separated into two separate and different continents. Many lands were unable to sink to the bottom of the ocean as the islands were vaporized and erased from all existence, unable to leave a trace of themselves floating along the water. Mountain ranges began rumbling while the core of the earth slowly crept upward from beneath the ocean to poison the waters. Animals ran wild throughout the world, trampling over anyone and every single thing possibly perceived as a threat to their path. Birds flew into buildings and windows while bouncing into people and causing several deaths. The speeds and trajectory distances of the birds, with and without hitting a building first, would not change the transcending death toll. Though the ocean waters remained fairly clear, the waves grew larger in the distance, far away from land. The typhoons and whirlpools sporadically formed, quickly gaining in strength for destruction. Several submarines imploded, crushing everything and everyone within, while other submersible machines exploded to create shrapnel, killing marine life at the bottom without bias. The underwater vessels triggered a chain reaction, and all ignited all forgotten mines left underneath the surface of the water. Random spots in the ocean had a volcanic eruption, shooting many cruise ships airborne. The passengers drunkenly tumbled and fell throughout the spinning before the crashing on top of the ocean waves and killing most instantly. Other maritime vehicles soon suffered a similar fate, or the engine ripped out of the hull, causing the ships to be pulled to the floor. Whirlpools formed throughout the seas and lakes. Dolphins appeared from the depths to leap onto the cruise ships, chasing the passengers, chewing people's faces off. The dolphins cackled and laughed intermittently during each chomping attack to a human. Weights and bars shattered into shrapnel and shot into all beings until all metal fragments were embedded into breathing flesh, piercing through the walls until the metal found their parasitic home until destruction was complete. Pools of blood oozed everywhere. Satellites stopped broadcasting as health monitors zapped each electrode, touching any living creature's skin. Suddenly, airplanes and helicopters slammed into the ground beneath after all people on board lost oxygen capabilities before the captain could notify of any issues. Chaos quickly ensued in each household and business across the globe, and the mayhem flooded into the streets and waterways. This problem quickly spanned outward, similar to a crack turning into a spiderweb across the globe of the earth. When North Korea and Iran lost their power sources, their nuclear facilities exploded. Within the blink of an eye, Korea, Japan, Hawaii, and nearby islands on the earth disappeared without any human knowledge or comprehension. Once the Middle Eastern nuclear reactors lost control of the power sources, all beings within a 40-mile radius felt their flesh begin to melt. After the internal organs bled through the pores of every person, the residual skin caught on fire during the final breaths. Other Middle Eastern sub-regions subatomically absorbed the particles floating through the air, causing them to suffer the same fate for a longer and more prolonged amount of time, screaming as they ran around, filled with the agony as their flesh melted into the ground. The death toll numbers surmounted. No human would be able to collect the full damage or the death tolls yet. Briefly, the wind screeched throughout the atmosphere before the commentary continued. So says the book of Revelations in chapter 11, verse 18. No one could assess or access any type of a technology, and thus no one could find the cause for the abrupt destruction. Emergency phone lines could not be reached with the outages across the globe. All patients attached to life-giving machinery died instantly without any pain or any medical staff knowledge. Emergency ambulance crews experienced the same sensation as when an armored tank is pierced. The vacuum through a small, non-existent hole created a large pile of human goo, combined with all of the internal equipment blended into a mushy substance. Police vehicles sporadically levitated and spun throughout the air as if cars were linked to a roller coaster system, spinning and flipping while turning, only to crash into one another. Fire engines split into multiple pieces while stationary or in movement, as they were a hard-boiled egg being removed from a slicer. Vehicle engines turned off and stopped moving abruptly, which caused multiple car accidents and pileups throughout the land. Individuals using workout equipment were flung into walls, breaking multiple bones in each body. Treadmills spun out of control and threw anyone using similar devices into nearby items and people. That is where I'm going to end real quick. So, isn't it weird that there are so many jurisdictions? And I had met a couple people who had said, and this is after having written this book. I didn't know this at the time. I had been told by a female I knew at the time that because she lived where there was like a district line change, her front yard was considered one district area and her backyard was considered a different district area. I did not know that when I wrote a book. Failsafe, the Kennedy curse fused with science fiction fantasy. That's kind of weird. It's just kind of a little ironic. I also didn't know that there were solar panel fields. I found that out when I was on my marijuana project trip. I didn't even know that existed. So, though I also didn't know about the 911 phone call issues. But I also didn't know about the hacking until 2019. So, that's kind of ironic. I had no idea that, I was just being creative. I have written a whole bunch of books already. And I thought it would be really cool to, write in a different book type. And so I decided to write a scary book. So I wrote a scary book. I thought it would be cool, because then I could show my son that I did pay attention, despite what was going on with my daughter, his sister. To show him that I cared and that I paid attention. So I told him one day I was going to write a scary book. And he looked at me and said, "Mom, you don't know how to write a scary book." And I told him, "But James, I will. I can write a scary book." And he was like, "No, Mom, you only know how to, be nice and loving." I do. I know how to be nice and loving. That's how I am. I am. But I can write a scary book. And he looked at me, he's like, "No, you can't, Mom. You can't write a scary book." And I was like, "But I want to." And he goes, "Okay, go ahead, Mom. Let's see how scary of a book you can write." Okay. And so because, my son was a teenager at the time, I was like, well, I can't make it too scary. I can't make it too scary because, I don't want to go too scary. And so then I wrote that book and I got it published through Amazon. And I went, "Here, read it." And my son read it, and then, I asked him about it. What do you think? And he was like, I just want to let you know, I'm going to stop watching and reading this stuff. I'm going to start reading law enforcement and military books. I was like, oh, why's that? And he said, because, I read your book. What do you think of it? I'm not going to tell you it's scary, Mom. I'm just going to tell you that I'm going to start reading law enforcement and military books. Oh, okay. Did you like it? And he just kind of looked at me and he's like, it was informative. And I was like, well, it was supposed to be scary. And he was like, oh, I'm not going to say it was scary. What I am going to say is I'm going to get into law enforcement and military books from now on. Well, you better be respectful. I raised you to be respectful. Yep. I love you, Mom. I love you. So I paid attention. Despite what others thought. However, I didn't know that there were solar fields of those panel things. I didn't know that. So, you guys have a good one.